Hi everybody, it's Jacquelyn from the Art Spark. I am sad that we're not at the studio, but I'm excited that we can do some projects at home together and that we're all staying safe and healthy at home. So this is my house and this is a unicorn marionette puppet, and you can really make any four-legged animal puppet at home with your kids. This project is geared more towards kids that are probably 5 to 10. If they're older than that and they want to make these, that's awesome too. If they're younger than that, they probably just need more help. So I'm going to walk you guys through the materials that I used and just how I kind of put this puppet together. And what's fun about this project is it's something that you can keep playing with at home. It's something, if you wanted to write a cool puppet show for your puppet, that would be a fun activity to do, or make a theater for your puppet. So there's a lot of things surrounding this puppet that you could do as well. But as I said before, you can make any kind of four-legged animal, and I chose my unicorn. And let's just walk through the materials that you're going to need for this project. So as you can see, the body and the head are made out of toilet paper tubes. I know toilet paper is a hot commodity right now, but if you have toilet paper tubes or even paper towel tubes at home, you can use them. And you'll need like 2 per kid, but if you don't have that many, you can use 1. That'll be fine too. It'll just be smaller. So I covered them in printer paper, so any kind of white paper, construction paper, it can be colored too. It's up to you. And then markers or colored pencils, crayons, anything that you can really draw with that's colorful. And I also have some embroidery thread. If you don't have embroidery thread, any kind of string will work, and you really only need it for the marionette strings. I did use it for the mane and the tail, just because the unicorn has those things. And then the legs of my unicorn are pipe cleaners. And the pipe cleaners, if you don't have them at home, they are inexpensive on Amazon to buy some. You could also use twist ties. Just, you need something that's kind of bendable, and it's really up to you. I wouldn't use string though, because it'll be a little bit too bendy. So pipe cleaners work well, twisty ties would be good. And then there's also buttons at the bottom, because if you do want to do this on a hard surface, it's really cute because they can kind of tap dance on there. If you don't have buttons, you could use beads, little plastic pony beads. And then I'm holding up my unicorn using a popsicle stick. If you don't have popsicle sticks, you could use a stick from outside if you wanted to. Just, clean it off first. You could do that. So let's get started talking about how to make one of these guys. I'm going to lay down my marionette for a second, and we'll talk about how I started this. So I have 2 toilet paper tubes here, and I'm going to first cut the head of my unicorn. I think I'm just going to make another unicorn, but again, you could make a giraffe, would be really cool. A cat, a dog, any animal that your kid really likes a lot, that you like a lot, you can do that. So I'm going to cut the head, and I just have a pair of scissors. You'll need that too. And I'm just going to kind of, about 1/3 of your toilet paper tube, I'm going to go ahead and cut that. It's okay if it gets flattened out a little bit, because you can kind of pop it back into place. And then I'm just going to discard this. If you wanted to use this as a body, you definitely could. It just is a little bit smaller. But I'm going to kind of put this aside because I don't need that. And then this will be my head. And we'll talk about which way that goes and everything in just a minute. And then I have a whole toilet paper tube that's going to be the body. So it'll kind of be sitting like this. All right, so now if you wanted to, you could just take markers and color right on here, or crayon or whatever you want. You don't have to cover it in paper first. I do like covering it in paper first, because that way you have a really clean, nice kind of blank canvas to go off of. So I'm going to show you guys how I did that, and this is good too for kids to do because it involves measuring a little bit and trying to kind of see how much paper you're going to need to cover this. But I'm going to start with the body. I'll kind of move this out of the way so you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm going to put her over here. And then I forgot to, guys, you need hot glue for this. I used hot glue to put this together. I'm so sorry. If you don't have hot glue, you could probably use tape for most of this. Elmer's glue I don't think will work. You need it to be a little bit, kind of the dry time to be a little bit faster. But hot glue guns and hot glue sticks are pretty inexpensive on Amazon. But again, you could use like duct tape or something just to put it together. We'll talk about that at the end a little bit more. Sorry about that. You will need some hot glue and probably some tape as well. So let's start with talking about how we're gonna measure our toilet paper tube. I'm gonna go ahead and take my printer paper here, and I'm gonna lay my toilet paper tube down kind of at the top. And what I'm doing is I'm just trying to see how long this is. And I'm gonna just take a marker here. I'll let that go. Doesn't really matter what color. You could use, you know, a pencil or anything you want. And I'm just gonna kind of hold this up to the edge with my pointer finger and push it down. And I'm gonna just kind of make a little mark to show where that toilet paper tube ends, okay? And then I'm gonna pick it back up and lay it down. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut a strip of paper that's, I don't think I'll make it this long. I don't think I'll need that much. So I'm gonna kind of stop about maybe a little farther than halfway down my paper. And if there's too much, I can cut it. If there's too little, I can add to it. It's not that big of a deal. But I'm gonna start where my little notch is and just try to cut it as straight as I can. If you wanna make a straight line, you can. If you're practicing using your ruler, you could do that. But I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it for now. And then I'm gonna cut across here too. So I have this strip of paper now that I can hopefully put around my toilet paper tube. So I've got my piece of paper here, and as you can see, this isn't straight. I think this paper got cut or something. That's okay, we'll figure that out in a minute. But I'm gonna take my piece of paper, and I'm gonna kind of lay it down like this. And the way that I'm gonna stick this on here, you could use hot glue. I'm gonna use a piece of tape to hold this in place. And I wanna make sure that my tape is on my paper and on my cardboard. So I'm gonna pull a piece off of here. Now, if your child is a little younger, you could tear off the piece for them and kind of have it out, and they could kind of take it off and use it, or they could try it themselves and learn how to, you know, take the tape off. I think I'm gonna do it kind of long ways like this. Just kind of push that down, so now it's stuck on there. And then I'm gonna start to wind this around like that. And it is a little long, but that's okay if it overlaps. That's totally fine. Okay, now to secure it in place, I'm going to get another piece of tape. I'm gonna kind of let go of it for a second. That's okay. I should have gotten my tape first, but that's okay. I'm gonna take a piece off, kind of tear it to the side there. And I'll wind it back up like this. And then I'm gonna secure it in place. I just kind of pinch it like that. You wanna make sure it's pretty tight on there so it doesn't get a gap in it. You might even need two pieces. Okay, so I've got this on here. Now, if you have an overlap like I do, all you have to do is kind of tuck that paper inside. So I'm just gonna kind of push it in like this, and then you don't even see it anymore. Okay, and I'll do that maybe a little bit on this end as well. Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and cover the head with my white paper, and I can just use that same piece of paper. Now, because this is a little bit shorter, I won't need as much, but I am gonna do that same process and make a little notch on my paper where it ends. So I'm just lining that up. I'm gonna make a little notch. If you want to make it a little longer than your tube, you can do that just so it's not too short. But it's up to you. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of cut, and I'm not gonna cut it as long, again, because it's shorter. And I'm just gonna kind of cut this way. I've got my piece, looks like a rectangle. And I don't think this is long enough. That's okay, we all make mistakes. I'm gonna go ahead and tape it on there and use it anyway. And I'll just cut a little bit more for it. So, as I'm doing this, I'll kind of talk about maybe some other animals that might be fun to make marionettes out of. If you like elephants, that would be a fun one because you can make a long trunk for it. You could also make, I think it would be really cute to make a cat and have it have a long tail. It's really up to you, and you can make a couple of these and make a whole puppet show out of it if you want to. But I know that puppets are a fun thing to do on a rainy day, and since we're all kind of stuck inside, this is a fun thing that we can do inside. Or you could take them outside too if you wanted to and set up a whole stage outside. That would be fun as well. All right, so now I've got my head. Okay, had to cut it for a second because I realized I used the wrong toilet paper tube and made a very big head for my marionette puppets. Now I've got my small one again, and they're both covered in paper, which is perfect for what I want for my unicorn. And now I'm gonna start adding the details to my unicorn. So because the head is gonna go like this, where the hole is up at the top and the hole is down at the bottom, I wanna draw the face probably facing out this way. And on my unicorn that I made over here, as you can see, I kind of did like the closed eyes with the eyelashes. That's a really cute way to make animal eyes. You could make them open. You could use googly eyes if you have them, buttons if you have them. It's up to you. But I think I'm going to make the same face. And as you can see, there's eyes, there's kind of the lines showing where the nose is, and then the nostrils. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And you can use whatever colors you want. I do think I'll use my black again to do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of hold it, like pinch it with my pinching fingers, and just kind of take my time. And if you want to, you could use a pencil and then go over it. If you're a little bit afraid of going right on here and think you might mess up, you probably won't. It'll look awesome no matter what. But if you're a little bit worried about it, you could start with a pencil. Okay, so now I've got my unicorn's face on here. And you can, you know, if you're really into coloring, you could make flowers on this. You can make hearts on this. You know, it's something that you could take as long as you want or as short as you want on it. It's really up to you. So for the body, I don't think I did this on my other unicorn, but I think I want to add something called a cutie mark, which kids will probably know what this is from My Little Pony, but it's kind of a mark on their body that shows a power they have or something special to them. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll draw a little rainbow on mine because I love rainbows. They're really fun. So I'm just going to kind of take my markers and draw a little rainbow on here. And you could do it on one side, you could do it on both sides. It's really up to you. If you did a rainbow yourself, you could, you know, talk about the colors of the rainbow and what order they go in. That's a really good lesson to kind of do. Other things might be fun. You could do a shamrock, you could do a heart, you could do a snowflake, maybe it's a snow unicorn, maybe it's an underwater unicorn, that would be cool. Or, you know, maybe it's a zebra and you put stripes all over it. It's really up to you. But I'm having fun making my rainbow right now. I love to just use markers. It's so much fun to just kind of draw and see what you make up. But I made just this little rainbow on here for her cutie mark. So now that I have her body and head decorated, I'm gonna make some other details to make her look more like a unicorn out of the paper that I have. And this is something that you would want to hot glue on. You could probably use a glue stick for this part too. Elmer's glue, if you held it on there for a while and kind of pinched it, it'll probably work too. But a hot glue gun is going to be the fastest way to get it to work. So something that we do at the Art Spark, if you've been to our classes, is we really try to ask the kids, what does this animal need? So if you're doing this with your kid, you could say, what does your giraffe need? Or what is your, whatever four-legged animal, what do they need to look more like this animal? And that's a good way to get them thinking about, for themselves. How do I figure this out? What do I need? So if I ask myself that, I know a unicorn needs ears, and they definitely need a horn, which helps them look like a unicorn. And something else you could do too is you could think about what size you need to make them. You don't want ears that are really big, but you also don't want ears that are really, really tiny. So that's something good too for kids to learn about, is size and how that works. And a lot of times it's trial and error. I know in our classes we'll say this and say, should the ears be this tiny or this big? And a lot of times the kids will say what size it needs to be, but then when they make them, they're really teeny tiny. And sometimes that's okay because you have to see what happens and say, oh, those ears are too tiny or those ears are way too big. But I'm going to cut out some ears, and I cut out some triangular ears for mine with kind of a pink middle. I'm going to put those aside and glue them on in just a minute. And then for my horn, that's another triangle shape. I think I'm going to make like a purple horn for mine. You can make a rainbow horn, kind of whatever you feel like making. Okay, kind of looks like a party hat. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. Something too, when you're cutting out something small, we do something called bubble cutting, which is where you take your scissors and cut a circle around something. That way you don't have all your paper flopping everywhere while you're cutting out something small. So now I just have this, and it's a little bit easier for me to cut out. Okay, so I've got my horn and my ears. Now, because these are so little, you might want to have, if your child is younger, I'd say probably if they're 9 or 10, they could try it on their own. But if they're younger, I would do this part for them because your hot glue gun is hot. They could show you where they want it. That's like a good way so they could like be in charge of making that choice. But the hot glue gun gluing these little parts on can, be a little bit dangerous because it is hot. But I'm going to go ahead and glue my horn to the front and glue the ears on either side of it. So I'm going to put it on the inside today. Just kind of do little dots like this. And then I'm going to take my horn and put it on. And if you're doing this like at the kitchen table and you don't want the hot glue to get on your table, like I just have a piece of paper here, that'll work fine. I'm going to put the ears on. It is hot, but I can use my finger a little bit to kind of push that on there. Okay, so there's my unicorn's face, and its ears, and its horn. And I could go ahead and make my mane out of paper and my tail out of paper. I do already have some string that I'm just going to kind of cut a little bit for those things. I think for my tail, I might just double this up a little bit and just kind of pinch it. And when I look at this to see where the tail's going to go, I kind of want to make sure that it goes right at the end here, like this. I could also kind of tuck it inside there, which I think I'm going to do. So I'm just going to take my hot glue and put a little bit at the top, and then take this and kind of put it inside. And if the hot, as you can see, look at this, the hot glue is really hot. So something I do sometimes is I take a popsicle stick that I'm not using and I use it to press things on. If the popsicle stick does get stuck, you can just kind of wiggle it off there, it'll be fine. But that way it's not so hot on your fingers. Okay, so I've got the tail on there, and then I can go ahead and glue my mane on. In the mane, I'm gonna glue to the back of the head. I think that would look right. And you can kind of move it around, see where you want it. Maybe your unicorn has bangs. You can do what you want with the hair. That's really fun. I'm going to go ahead and kind of put a stripe of glue down the back of this and go ahead and glue her mane on. Okay. So now that I have these pieces on here, I know that I kind of want to make the legs and attach the head onto the body. And the reason I'm going to do that all kind of at the same time is because I'm going to use pipe cleaners for that. So let's talk about my pipe cleaners. I have 2 here. You can make your legs for your animal as long as you want. I would suggest making them a little longer so that when you have your whole marionette, you know, if my unicorn had really, really short legs, it wouldn't be as fun because it wouldn't stand as tall. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and use, I could cut these into 4. I do need a little part though for the neck. So I think I will. I think I'll go ahead and cut these into 4 pieces. And cutting a pipe cleaner is a little bit different than cutting paper because there is a wire inside. So when I teach kids to do this, I kind of have them open their scissors up really wide because this is the sharpest part of their scissors. And I kind of pinch it. I'm going to hold my fingers kind of away and then I kind of clamp down. I'm using adult scissors. They can use their kid scissors and try it. Okay, so these look a little bit long to me, so I'm just going to cut them a little shorter. And that'll be good too because then I'll have a part for the neck as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut these all at once. If you want to though, you could cut them individually. That'll probably be better for kids to do. But I'm going to kind of cut them a little bit shorter. Okay. So now that I have my 4 legs, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to put those aside and I'm going to use one of my pipe cleaner pieces to attach the head onto my body, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pipe cleaner and I'm going to glue it kind of right underneath the mane, or kind of like right here, because what I want is I want this to show a little bit. So I'm going to kind of poke that part out like a tail and it'll be kind of glued in like that. That's what I want it to look like. So I'm going to go ahead, and again, this is kind of more of a part for an adult to do unless they're a little bit older. I'm going to put a little hot glue in here, and I'm going to kind of attach this first. Again, if it's really hot, you could use your popsicle stick to kind of press that down onto the glue. And then I'm going to attach this inside here, okay? And I'm just kind of holding it up and making sure, okay, you know, does that look right? Does this match up with the body? Does this look okay? Just kind of doing that a little bit beforehand to make sure that it's all coming together the way that I want it to come together. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put this inside. This part's a little trickier because I kind of have to hold both pieces, but I'll just hold that for a second. That's the nice thing about hot glue, is that it is quick. If I tried to do this with Elmer's glue, I don't think it would work that well because I'd really have to sit there and hold it for a long time. But you could use like some duct tape inside there. I really do think that would be okay to use. Okay, so now I've got my unicorn, and I see now that my cutie mark is in the front. That's okay. I kind of actually like it that way. So now I'm going to put the legs on. And the legs, what I like to do is I like to kind of make it so that the end where the foot would be, or in this case the hoof, I'm going to bend it a little bit. That way it's a little bit easier when I glue on my buttons so that it's a little bit flat and that'll be easier to put on. And I'm going to kind of look at this and put my legs on the sides of my unicorn like this, okay? And this is something that your kid can definitely say, okay, here's where I want the legs to go. And then you could kind of glue it on for them. But that way they're, you know, seeing like there's 4 legs, and I'm just gonna kind of put this on here like that. Okay. I like this length for the unicorn. I think it'll be a fun length because then she can kind of dance around and it'll be nice. Okay, so I'm kind of pinching that on here. There are high temp hot glue guns and there's low temp hot glue guns. I do have a high temp one because that's what I had here at my house, and they do hurt more when you use it, but it does secure it really well. But for a project like this, you really could just use the low temp. That's what we used at the Art Spark studio, and that way too, if you do get a little hot glue on your fingers, it's not gonna hurt as bad, but you should always be careful. Okay, so I've got my legs on my unicorn, and now I'm gonna go ahead and glue her hooves on, which are gonna be the buttons. Remember, if you don't have buttons, you could use pony beads or any kind of bead that you have. I've got some little buttons here. I think I want them all to match, so I'm gonna pick out 4, kind of count out 4 of them. I think it's fun to use something more plasticky so that if they do kind of play with this on a hard surface, it taps, which is a fun component to this. I'm going to turn her upside down and kind of just put a little bit of glue on each of her hoof part and then just kind of stick that on there. Okay. And after I do this, I'm going to work on kind of putting the strings together and the popsicle stick on. And after that, I'll be able to play with this marionette puppet and make my own puppet show if I wanted to. It's just a really fun project that you can get as creative as you want with. But I think what's important is if you're at home, leave enough time if they do want to spend a lot of time on this, or pick an animal that you want to learn a lot about, and you can, make a whole lesson out of it if you wanted to, and, they learn all about the animal and its environment. That would be really fun as well. Okay, so I've got my unicorn, and now I'm ready to put the strings on and attach it to my popsicle stick. So I have a popsicle stick here, and then I also have my string. Now what's important for this is that you want 2 strings. You want a string that's attached to the head and a string that's attached to the body. The string that's attached to your head is going to be a little shorter. And the reason for that is because that way, if the strings were kind of at the same length, it might just kind of sit there. But because the strings are different lengths, it kind of looks like when you move it, it's kind of moving around too. So I have a string, this I'd say is about 5 inches. You can make yours longer if you want to, and have it be really long. That would be fun too. But that way this doesn't get super tangly. And then I've got another string that's a little bit shorter that's gonna go on the head part. So the way that I'm gonna first attach it to my popsicle stick. And the way I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna kind of put a little hot glue on, and then I'm gonna put my short string, I think, on first. And I just kind of lay it there, and then I just take a little button. You could take a bead, you could take a pom-pom, it could be anything, but this way you don't have to put your finger right on it, and I just kind of press that down. And that way, when I turn that over, now it's like this. And I can attach it to the head in a second. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side for it to attach to the body. So I'm gonna put my hot glue down. I think I'll use the same color. Gonna put this on here and go ahead and press that on. Okay, so to me right now, I think I want this one to be a little bit shorter even. So I'm just gonna go ahead, you can kind of eyeball it, and I'm just gonna cut it a little bit shorter. Okay, so where I wanna put this is I wanna glue it to the back of its head back here. I'm gonna go ahead and put a little hot glue on here and kind of flip this over. This part's a little tricky just because it's kind of like you're trying to put everything together. So I just kind of am gonna lay it down a little bit and kind of just press that in, let it sit there for a second. Okay, that looks good. Then I'm gonna go ahead and put the longer string that goes in the back and glue it kind of underneath that tail part. Basically, you want to glue it to the upper part of your toilet paper tube. If you wanted to, you could glue it to the top of it, but I just kind of want it on the inside. So I'm gonna put a little bit of glue in there and put this here. Okay, so now the fun part where you kind of hold it up and see what you've made. So I'm really excited. I like this unicorn a lot. This will be really fun to kind of make up a puppet show and play with, and I'm proud of it. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this lesson, and I love it. We'd love it at ArtSpark if you posted your pictures or a video. We'd love to see what you guys are making, and we hope to have a lot more videos out. We miss everybody at our studio. Hope you're staying safe and healthy.